Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Maseches Nedarim, Daf Chaf Aleph. We began a brand new perek. Says the Mishnah, bottom of Chaf Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. Arba Nedarim hitiru Chachamim. In the following 4 cases, the Chachamim maintain these expressions do not reflect at all any intention to make a neder. The lashon neder employed in these situations are simply used as a means to pressure, to cajole, to encourage, etc., but never meant as a real neder, and therefore there's absolutely no need to even come to the Chacham and to ask him to release you of your neder. It's not a neder to begin with. In the following 4 cases, they are not considered neder at all. Nidrei ziruzin, a neder meant just to encourage, as a negotiation tool, etc., as we're going to see in a minute. V'nidrei havai, just meant to back up your words of exaggeration. And the Mishnah will go on to explain this as well. V'nidrei shkogois, v'nidrei eintzin, as we're going to see later in the parak. Now we go back to the first case. Nidrei zeruzin ketzad. Let's have an example of nidrei zeruzin. A neder term just used to encourage, used as a negotiation tool in the marketplace. For instance, ketzad. For instance, haya meicher chayfetz. A seller is standing in the marketplace, about to sell an item. A box of tissues. V'amar, he says, Kainam, any money given to me in exchange for this box of tissues will be usher as a carbon. Sha'ani peiches l'cha min hasela, if I give it to you for less than a sela. He's insisting on getting a full sela, full asking price for this item. And he reinforces his words by way of a neder. So that's the seller. And the customer is just as adamant. He responds, no more than 50 cents, no more than half a sela. The item for sale should be usher to me. I will never partake in it. If I shall give you more than a shekel, which is a half a sela. The seller insists on a full sela, like $1, right? The seller is 100 dinar, a full $1. And the buyer says no more than 50 cents. In reality, says the Mishnah, their objective, their goal is to get to 75 cents. Shneim roitzin b'shlish dinrin. In reality, they're all aiming for the 75-cent mark. It's just a ploy, it's a way to negotiate. First, they state their starting positions. No less than 100, no more than 50. But of course they know, chances are, that they will have to meet halfway and compromise at 75 cents. So although they were pretty adamant, pretty absolute, anything less than 100 will be usher. Anything more than 50 will be usher. But in reality, it was just a nidrei zeruzin to encourage, to cajole, to pressure, to negotiate. But of course, they both realize that in life you have to compromise and go 50-50. So once you get to 75 cents, everybody's happy, and there was no neder to begin with in this instance. Says the Gemara, so let's go back to the 4 examples, which the Mishnah tells us is not really a neder. What is the reason for this halacha? You have explained to us in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, Man Tana Arba Nedarim. Who's this shita? Who's the one that holds that, for instance, when it comes to nidrei zeruzin, it's not considered. It's totally mutter. Who's speaking? Whose shita? Whose opinion is reflected therein? Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar Mishum Rabbi Tarfon. It's this shita. Rabbi Yehuda quoting Rabbi Tarfon, who told us as follows. He's speaking where there are two people standing, Reuven and Shimon. There's another fellow walking towards them. At this point, identity unknown. Reuven declares to Shimon, I will be a Nazir if that fellow turns out to be Levi. Shimon says, I will be a Nazir, if it turns out to be a different person, non-Levi. Now this fellow suddenly, abruptly turns around and disappears. We'll never know who he was. But chances are, one of these two people, either Reuven or Shimon, is a Nazir. Because that stranger was either Levi, in which case Reuven is right, or he was not Levi, in which case Shimon was right. Would you say that one of them is a Nazir? Misafik? One of them, you just don't know who? According to Rabbi Tarfon, no. None of them are Nazir. None of them become a Nazir. You know why? Because it wasn't clear, it wasn't definite, it wasn't explicit, it wasn't clear at that point of expression. Nazirus only works if it was expressed clearly. The pasuk says, Ishki yafli, lindo neder nazir l'Hashem. Yafli means clear. When you express those words, when you express that commitment to becoming a Nazir, it was known, it was apparent, it was definite, it was explicit. Here it wasn't. You're depending it on something. You're making a sort of a t'nai. You're perhaps even hoping it's not Reuven, or in any case, it's just not known at this point. What you're saying, what you're trying to do. And it doesn't work. And likewise by a neder, which is connected, which is matched up with Nazir. We have this on the Daf Gimel. There's a hekesh to connect Nedarim to Nazirus. When you make this type of neder, like in our Mishnah, seller insists, I will not benefit from any of your money, Mr. Buyer, if you do not pay me my full asking price. So he's making a neder, an isra on that money, which depends on some sort of future event. Likewise, the buyer is saying, I will not have any anah from this item if you force me to pay more than 50 cents. Once again, it's a neder isra, but it depends on a t'nai, which perhaps he's hoping will never pan out, will never happen. This type of unexplicit commitment, this type of unknown isra, a neder which is dependent on something like this, is lacking in a hafla and doesn't work. So that's the pshat in our Mishnah. Nidrei Zeruzin is not a neder because of this shita which requires hafla. That's his opinion. Rava Amar says, I'll tell you more simply. Afilu Temer Rabbanon, our Mishnah, can be reflective of even shitas Rabbanon who did not agree with this hafla requirement. So why is it not a neder? I never got my asking price. In terms of the customer, he never got his bargain. Why doesn't the neder kick in? The answer is, that was their intention all along. Miktani shnein ratzu. In the Mishnah's last, concluding line, it says, Shneim roitzin b'shloisha dinarin. If it would say shnein ratzu, perhaps it would mean that ultimately they settled for 75 cents. He wanted 100. He wanted only 50 cents. They settled for 75. It doesn't say that. What then does it say? Shnein roitzin katani. Initially, from the start, from the get-go, both buyer and seller knew the ultimate goal is to get to 75 cents. In which case, the neder was never committed otherwise. And therefore, there's no issue of a neder in this case. Amalei Ravina Rav Ashi. I have a question. In our Mishnah, we have the buyer insisting on getting 100 cents, the seller responding no more than 50 cents. We say, okay, face reality, settle for 75 cents. What about Armalei famous seller? The buyer was very definite and specific in his demands. I need $1.01, 101. He's being so exact and specific in his numbers. V'alo amar batzim mishekel. And the buyer responded with 49 cents. Shall we say, perhaps nidra havi. Here, the neder really kicks in because it wasn't just a ballpark figure. He was being so exact and specific in his demands. And he was being so exact and specific in his offer. Perhaps in this case, you cannot say he was going to settle for anything else. Or perhaps even in this case, it's just ziruzin. It's just an employment of a tactical trick to get them to comply to each other. And in reality, they're willing to compromise. Amar le Tanina, he responded, we have a Mishnah that even this type of situation is labeled as tagged as zeiruzin. It's just meant as a negotiating tactic. Reuven extended a pretty insistent invitation to his friend Shimon. Come have your meal by me. Shimon is unwilling. He tells him, your house should be usher to me like a carbon. Shari nichnas. My coming into your house is totally usher. Even just a taste of cold water of yours is usher to me. What is the halacha? In reality, he could enter the fellow's house. Shimon can actually partake in Reuven's water. Why? Even though he explicitly stated otherwise. Because deep down, ultimately, he was just trying to avoid a meal. So although he stated it with such extreme conviction, no water, no stepping foot in your home, but ultimately he was just trying to avoid having to spend a meal with him. So therefore he can enter the home, he can have his tzainin as long as he avoids his meal. That's the Mishnah. Question. V'amai, why would you say so? Wasn't he being so extreme and detailed in his adamance? Not even a drop of water. Apparently, Ella, Mishtoi inish hachi. People sometimes tend to speak in such extreme terms, but it's not necessarily an expression of absoluteness. He was trying to make his point. Hachanami here as well. When I, as a seller, insisted on 101, and you, as a buyer, insisted on 49, people speak this way. But ultimately, we were going to settle for 75 cents. Amrali, he responded, how do you compare? Midami. It's not a match. Gabi Tzainin, in the case of the cold water, Shimon did not want to join Reuven for the meal. But the reason why he expressed himself so adamantly, no drink. He was afraid that if he relents to even a drink of water, and this fellow was offering him a meal, that's tzaddik. And as we know, like it says by Avram Avinu, tzaddikim speak less and do more, as opposed to Lot, who offered the world and did very little. There's a word they say, either you speak or you do. You have just that much energy within you. Tzaddikim save their energy. They preserve their kayach. They speak less and they just do more. So the bottom line is, he when he refused even a tipas tzainin, he was just trying to say that, I'm afraid of even taking a drop of water from you, because once you get going and you offer me even a little bit, I'm going to find myself sitting in front of an 8-course meal. Right? So he's afraid that when this fellow will offer him that drink, it's going to end up being a whole meal. So that's why he's being so adamant in his refusal. Don't even give me a drink, because he knows a drink can really mean a big meal. But hacha, in our case, of the merchant in the marketplace, we can't really apply this rationale. So perhaps in this case, there's room to think that when he was so adamant about it, so extreme and detailed, 101 pennies for this item, that leads to a suffix. We're not sure what he meant. Sfeikahu. Dilma pachis misela V'yeser al shekel ka'amar v'ziruzin havi. Perhaps ultimately he's going to settle for somewhere, between the seller and the shekel. So that was their objective, to settle halfway. It was just an expression of zeros, of encouragement, it was just a negotiating tactic. Or perhaps because they was being so specific and detailed, they meant what they said and they said what they meant. Tiboy, we leave it as a question mark. And the Ran says, we go l'chumrah, we have to treat it like a neder. You're meant to know that in all 4 examples of the Mishnah, starting from Nidei Zeruzin onward, you can't just cancel the neder. You have to go to the Chacham and ask him to release you of that neder. We treat it like a regular neder. Kamrisa Kaved Shmuel. So this is Rabbi Yehuda speaking, in the name of Ravasi. Eventually, when I came to Shmuel and presented him with this chidush, that even these 4 nedarim require hataras nedarim, perhaps with the Rabbanon, he responded like this: you can't say that. Tana, the Tana of our Mishnah, Tani Arba Nedarim Hitiru Chachamim, presented that these 4 nedarim were mutar by the Chachamim. They have no validity whatsoever. He had no intention of making a neder whatsoever. V'at amra tzrichan she'ela l'chacham, and you contend that she'ela is required. So in fact, Rav Yosef masni lo lashmaita by lishna. According to Rav Yosef, it wasn't said as we just presented previously. Rather, the correct version is as follows. Rav Yehuda quotes Rav Asi as follows. Certainly, these 4 nedarim are totally mutter. They were never meant as nedarim. So Rav Asi never contended otherwise. What then did Rav Asi tell us? Ein chacham rasha lahater. When we speak about a typical, conventional, a real neder, where the noider, the fellow who made the neder, approaches a chacham for hatara, the chacham must be careful in how he releases him of that neder. What type of method will he employ? What type of system will he use to revoke that neder? There are 2 methods, 2 possible avenues of hataras nedarim. One is called charata, rather simple, straightforward. Look, I wasn't paying attention, I wasn't mindful, I was being negligent and careless, I was in a moment of fit, of anger. I regret ever having made that commitment. That's charata. A more pointed method is Pesach. You find sort of an opening, an avenue of escape within the neder itself. Unforeseen circumstances. Had you have known, Mr. Neder, that your neder would lead to this and that, if you would have been aware of the consequences of your neder, would you have gone along with it? And he says no. That's a more effective antidote to the neder, because that's sort of focusing within the neder itself, finding a technical fault or deficiency, if you will, within the neder itself. So which method do you employ? We're going to have several shittas. And Rabbi Yehuda quotes Rav Asi as follows: you need method number 2, the more effective, direct method to be mater neder. Ein chacham rashi lahater. A chacham only has the ability to be mater neder if he employs the Pesach route. He finds some deficiency, something unforeseen, something sort of a surprise within the neder itself, which the fellow did not anticipate. And that makes it like a toast, like a mistake. Only if he discovers that this neder here is somewhat similar to the 4 nedarim in the Mishnah. And Farshim will explain what he means to say is just like the 4 nedarim in the Mishnah were never meant as nedarim. They were just like toes. They were just means to bring out a point, to negotiate the pressure. Likewise, your typical hataras nedarim has to follow that sort of route. Find something wrong within the commitment. Because he holds ein poischen b'charata. You can't Use just regret as a reason to undo a neder. A fellow came to Rav Huna to be matir a neder. Amar le, Rav Huna asks him, Libach Allah, I have a question for you. Was your heart into it? When you made that neder, were you mindful? Amar le, he says, absolutely not. I was not b'yishav hadas. I was out of control. I was moody. I was upset. V'sharye, and this was sufficient grounds to be matir the neder. So Rav Huna disagrees with Rav Asi. You don't need a Pesach. You don't need some sort of unanticipated consequence, which he failed to foresee. Even a plain charata is enough. This is in contrast with the next shita. A fellow shows up to Rabbi Rav Huna's base medrash. Amalei, he says to him, "Ilu hayu asara bnei adam sheifaysucha b'isashah min adart." So a fellow came to Rabbi Rav Huna's home to be matir neder. How did he respond to him? He says, "Look, he held that charata isn't enough. You need something more." But he didn't really hold that you need an absolute Pesach. Rather, he asked him, "Ilu hayu asara bnei adam sheifaysucha." Suppose there would have been 10 people present next to you. When you committed to that neder in that moment of fit, sheifaysucha would have appeased you and calmed you down and got you back to your senses. Ba'isashah, at that moment of commitment, min nadras, would you have committed in any way? Amalei, he says no. That was enough to be matir the neder. And the Ran learns, there's actually a gersa in the Gemara, kasavar in poisim charata, because he holds that you can't just use plain charata, plain regret. You need some sort of real factor to serve as an antidote to that commitment. What is the real factor? If there would have been a crowd around you, the minion around you, so that's sort of an unanticipated factor. If you would have had that next to you, would you have still committed? No. That's more than just regretting. It's like sort of another element that you didn't really reckon for, so to speak. And he said, no, I wouldn't have done it then. That was enough to be matir. So basically we have 3 levels of hataras nedarim. There's basic charata, regret. Look, I know I wasn't into it. I wasn't mindful. I wasn't focused. I was in a bad mood. I wouldn't have undertaken the whole thing if I would have been calculated at that time. So that's plain charata. On the other side we have Pesach, where we find some sort of deficiency within the commitment, some sort of unanticipated, unexpected consequence. Your neder not to eat meat would have, if you would have realized it's going to cost you weddings and simchas and give you a hard time, would you have accepted that upon yourself? He says, no, that's a Pesach. Then somewhere in the middle we have this asara b'nei adam factor. It's not just a plain simple regret, but it involves some other factor. If there would have been mefaisin around you, would you have gone along? He says no. So that indicates that there is something wrong with the commitment. Apparently there was hastiness involved, there's frenziness in your Kabbalah, and therefore it doesn't stand. So according to this shita, charata, plain charata is not enough. You need something more, an enhanced charata, so to speak, as the Ran explains. We find a similar machlekes in the Brisa, Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, Adam. We ask the petitioner, simple and straightforward, charata, leiv ze alecha. Did you have your heart with you, so to speak? Was your heart into it? Were you focused? Or was it just as a result of hastiness and moodiness? Imam Lav, if he says, no, sorry, I wasn't really focused at that time. Matir, I said it's enough to be matir. Charata is enough. Regret undoes the whole thing. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yisrael, no, you need more than that. He quotes his father, Mishem Aviv, Rabbi Yisrael, the father. Amrim Loi Adam, we have to ask him as follows. Simple regret doesn't work. Rather, ilu hayu asar b'nei adam shifai sucha v'yisashah. If there would have been 10 people there, calming you down, minadros, would you have gone along with it? Imam Lav, if he responds in the negative, matir and oisei, that's sufficient grounds for hataras nedarim. How does the Rav Asi? A fellow approaches Rav Asi. Amalei, Rav Asi asks him, Kadu tahis? Kadu is like you. Tais, are you regretting what you did? Amrle, he responds, Loi, you don't think so? I mean, that's exactly why I'm coming to ask for Ataras Nedarim. Sure, I'm regretting this commitment. V'shari, that was sufficient grounds for him to be matir. How does it come to Rabbi Lezer? A fellow approached Rabbi Lezer. Amrle, Rabbi Lezer asks him, Bois Nader? Would you like to stick with your neder? The Ran explains, what he was asking him was, I know that going forward you're not interested in the neder. What about going back? Was it a real commitment, or was it just in a moment of haste, a moment of frenziness? Bois neder? Did you really want to make this neder? Amrle, he says, no, ilu, loy meragzinli. If not for the fact that they got me upset at that moment, loy bein and klum, I would never have wanted this commitment. Amrle, he says, to hey boy, so it should be as you wish, meaning no neder at all. Ahi itisa. There was a story regarding a mother, an isha, the adarta lebarta, who imposed a neder against her daughter. You can't have any benefit from me. Asoy l'kamei Rav Nachman. Mother comes to Rav Yechanan. Amrla, he asks her, Ilu havas yadas. Suppose at that moment you would have been aware of the fact. This is going to generate bad reputations around town. The Amran Megerosach, that your neighbors will speak and say as follows: Allah de Bartach, regarding your daughter. Look what's going on. A neder from a mother to a daughter. Ilu loichamas ba ima. If not for the fact that the ima would have not noticed in her daughter, loichamas ba, not noticed in her ima, the mother. Milan da aziva, things which justify the daughter being detached and abandoned from the mother. If not for that, bichti, for naught, for no reason, loyadarta, she wouldn't have imposed a neder on her. So people will take this neder as an indication, as a sign of something terribly improper in your daughter. Had you have known that, would you have realized that? If you would have expected this reaction, miadarta, would you have made that neder against her? Amr lei loi, so she says for sure not. Vishari, that was enough to be matir. Bar barti the Rabbi Yanai Saba, the grandson of Rabbi Yanai Saba, also Rabbi Saba came to Rabbi Yanai's grandfather to release him of a neder. Amr lei tells him, Ilu hava yadas. Had you have been aware at that time that making a neder is risky, the paschen penkascha, then in Shemayim they open your ledger. They examine your deeds. The fact that you make a neder is an expression of confidence in your ability to keep the neder. You consider yourself a chassid, the righteous man. So they examine your deeds and they verify whether indeed you are worthy of that. If you would have known that this is going on, Mina Darta, would you have made that neder? Amr, he says, Loi, no, of course not. Vishari, and he was matir. Amr Baba, Makra, what do we find? A neder generates an examination in Shemayim. Va'achar Nedarim levaker. After a person makes a neder in Shemayim, they are mevaker masav. They examine his ways and see if he's really worthy. Says the Gemara, Va'afagav the pasach Rabbi Yanai le. Although Rabbi Yanai used this measure, this pasach, this concept to dissuade him from keeping the neder. Anan le paschinen le. We don't do that. Le paschinen baha. We don't use this method to release him of a neder. The reason being because perhaps this fellow is embarrassed to acknowledge that, I would have done it regardless. It's not respectful to Shamayim. So perhaps he's just being intimidated, but not really having charata, and therefore we cannot use this method of Ataras Nedarim. Be'ezus Hashem will continue tomorrow. So in summary, the Mishnah lists 4 examples of Nedarim which aren't really Nedarim. The first of which is Nidrei Zeruzin, which the Mishnah describes as a negotiation, a tactic. The seller insists on getting $1, buyer insists no more than 50 cents, they'll settle at 75 cents. Why is this not a neder? Shot 1, because it's lacking commitment and hafla. Shot 2, their initial intention was no more than just to meet halfway. What if they're extreme and definite in their expressions? 101, 49, we're not sure. We have to treat it as a neder. We have 3 methods of Ataras Nedarim, basic of which is charata, regret. More advanced is Pesach, some unanticipated factor, which we point out to him. And so in the middle we have the Asar b'nei Adam, that will be Mafayasim. And it seems from the Gemara, that's how, it seems from the Halacha that we paskin that even Charata mi'ikara, regret going back to the initial commitment, is sufficient for Ataras Nedarim. Be well and Hatzlacha Rabbah.